Welcome, my dear friends, and thank you for joining me today. I want to take you on a powerful journey, one that might completely change how you look at life, money, and success. What I'm about to share with you is not just a simple story. It is a life-changing lesson, a lesson that has helped millions of people create better futures, including myself. Today, we are talking about one of the most influential books ever written on financial freedom, Rich Dad Poor Dad. This book is not just about money. It is about mindset. It is about understanding the hidden rules of wealth that schools never teach. So imagine this: you are a young child growing up, watching the adults around you. One adult tells you, study hard, get good grades, and find a secure job. Another adult tells you, learn how money works, let money work for you, and build wealth with smart decisions. These two pieces of advice sound completely different, almost opposite. And now you must choose, which path will you follow? This exact confusion shaped the life of Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. He grew up with two father figures, two important men in his life, each with a totally different way of thinking. He called them his poor dad and his rich dad. Poor Dad was Robert's real father. He was intelligent, highly educated, and respected in society. He worked as a teacher and believed deeply in the traditional formula of success: study hard, get a stable job, work until retirement. But even with all his education, Poor Dad struggled financially. He lived from paycheck to paycheck. He worried every month about bills. He believed talking about money was uncomfortable, even rude. He thought that money was something you should not chase too much, or it might corrupt you. Rich Dad, however, was very different. He wasn't highly educated. He didn't have impressive degrees or a secure government job. But he had something far more powerful: true financial knowledge. Rich Dad owned businesses, invested in assets, and understood how money flowed in the real world. He believed that financial education was more important than school education. He believed anyone could learn to be wealthy if they learned the rules of money. His philosophy was simple: don't work for money. Make money work for you. Now imagine being a young boy like Robert, standing in the middle of these two opposite worlds. Both men loved him, both men wanted him to succeed, but their advice was completely different. Poor Dad would say, get a good job and stay safe. Rich Dad would say, create opportunities and build something of your own. Poor Dad would say, money is the root of all evil. Rich Dad would smile and say, no. The lack of money is the root of all evil. Poor Dad believed in security. Rich Dad believed in freedom. At first, Robert was confused. He respected both of them. He admired both of them. But he started noticing something important. Poor Dad, even though he was highly educated, was always stressed about money. He worried about expenses, loans, and monthly payments. Rich Dad, even with less formal education, was calm and confident. He didn't fear the future because he understood how money really works. One day, young Robert finally asked Rich Dad, why are you so relaxed about money? Why don't you worry like everyone else? Rich Dad looked at him with a gentle smile and replied, I'm confident because I understand the game. Money is not a mystery to me. It follows rules, and once you learn those rules, you never have to fear it again. Rich Dad looked at Robert with a calm smile and said a sentence that would change his life forever, I understand how money works. Most people don't. They spend their whole lives working for money, but they never learn how to make money work for them. Those simple words hit Robert like lightning. They planted a seed deep inside his mind, a seed of curiosity, a seed of hunger, a seed that whispered, "There is another way to live." From that moment, Robert made a decision. He wanted to learn from Rich Dad. He wanted to understand his knowledge, his habits, his way of thinking. He wanted to walk on the same path that led Rich Dad to financial freedom. And as he began learning, his entire view of the world started to shift. Let's pause for a moment and think about this. Isn't this exactly what happens to so many of us? We are raised in a system that teaches us how to memorize facts, how to pass exams, how to follow rules, but almost no one teaches us how money actually works. We hear the same instructions again and again: go to school, get a secure job, work hard, save a little, retire someday. But has anyone ever taught us how to grow money? How to invest it? How to break free from the endless cycle of working only to pay bills? The truth is simple: your mindset about money shapes your future. If you think money is dangerous, evil, or too complicated, you will always stay away from it and you will always struggle. But if you see money as a tool, something you can control, direct, and multiply, then your entire life changes. Money becomes a servant, not a master. It becomes a key that opens doors you never knew existed. Imagine two paths in front of you. One path leads to financial stress, constant worry, and a life of working just to survive. The other path leads to financial freedom, confidence, and opportunities. If both paths are right there in front of you, wouldn't you want to know how to choose the correct one? That is exactly what Rich Dad taught Robert. As their lessons continued, every conversation opened Robert's eyes even more. One day, Rich Dad said something that confused him deeply: the rich don't work for money. Robert frowned. He couldn't understand. What do you mean? Isn't money the whole reason people go to work? He asked. Rich Dad smiled gently and explained, no, Robert. The poor and the middle class work for money. But the rich make money work for them. That is the difference. He went on to describe what he called the rat race. He said, when you're a child, you go to school. There, you are taught to study hard so you can find a good job. When you finally get that job, you work hard to earn money. With your money, you buy things, maybe a house, maybe a car. But those things come with bills, taxes, loans, maintenance, repairs. So you work even harder to pay for them. The more you earn, the more you spend. The more you spend, the more you must work. And the cycle continues until one day you are old, tired, and still trapped. Rich Dad called this the rat race because it is like watching a small mouse running in circles on a wheel, fast, tired, sweating but going nowhere. Most people live their entire lives like that wheel, running, 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 but never becoming free. Rich Dad took a deep breath and continued, this cycle, it never ends. People think they're working for financial security, but in reality, they're working for their boss, for the government, and for the bank. The harder they work, the deeper they fall into this trap. And this is why most people never escape the rat race. His words were sharp, honest, and almost painful, but they were true. To help Robert understand, Rich Dad gave an example. Imagine a man named John, he said. John earns $3,000 a month. He thinks if he earns more, he will finally be comfortable. One day, he gets a raise and starts earning $4,000. What does he do? Instead of saving or investing, he buys a bigger house, a nicer car, or the latest phone. His expenses grow with his income. His lifestyle becomes more expensive. So now, instead of being free, John becomes even more trapped. He works harder, stays stressed, and continues trying to pay for things he didn't even need. This, Rich Dad explained, is the silent trap that millions of people fall into. When your expenses rise with your income, you never truly grow. You only run faster inside the same cage. Robert listened carefully, and suddenly, he realized something. This was exactly what his poor dad was doing. Poor dad worked hard, earned more, but also spent more. His life never changed because he never learned how to break the cycle. Then Rich Dad asked Robert a question. Do you know what financial freedom really means? Robert shook his head, curious. Rich Dad smiled and said, financial freedom means having enough income from your investments or your assets to cover your expenses. When you reach that point, you don't have to work unless you want to. Your money works for you. He continued, people think being rich means earning a high salary. But that's not true. Even someone earning a lot of money can be broke if their expenses are higher than their income. True wealth is not about how much you earn, it's about how much you keep and how much your assets earn for you. Then came one of the most important lessons of Robert's life, the difference between assets and liabilities. Rich Dad explained it in simple words. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket even when you're sleeping. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. To make it clearer, he shared two examples. In the first case, a young man saves $10,000 and buys a car. At first, he feels proud. But soon, the car needs fuel, maintenance, insurance, and repairs. Month after month, it takes money out of his pocket. Over time, the car loses value. This, Rich Dad said, is a liability. In the second case, another man saves the same $10,000 but buys a small piece of land. He rents it out for $200 a month. The land slowly increases in value, and every month it continues to generate income. This is an asset, something that adds money to your life instead of taking it away. Robert was amazed. Suddenly, the world made sense in a new way. He realized how often people confuse liabilities for assets. A big house may look like wealth, but if it takes money every month, it is not an asset. A fancy car may feel like success, but it drains your bank account. Expensive clothes may impress people, but they don't make you financially free. Rich Dad looked at Robert and said something he would remember forever, the rich buy assets first. Rich Dad continued, the rich invest in things that make money for them: businesses, real estate, stocks, and even education that increases their skills. These investments create what we call passive income. Passive income is money that comes in even when you're not working. And once the rich build enough assets, they can enjoy luxuries without stress, without worry, and without falling into the rat race. To help Robert understand more clearly, Rich Dad shared another example. He said, imagine two families. Both families earn the same amount of money, $5,000 a month. But their lives end up completely different. Family A spends all their money on rent, groceries, bills, and weekend entertainment. By the end of the month, their bank account is empty. They wait for the next salary just to survive. But Family B makes a different choice. They spend $4,000 on their needs and invest $1,000 in stocks. Over time, their investments grow, and soon they start earning $500 a month in dividends. Slowly, their passive income increases, and one day, it becomes enough to cover their expenses. Family B becomes financially free while Family A continues to work hard but remains stuck in the same cycle month after month. Robert finally understood something important: financial success isn't about how much money you earn, it's about how wisely you manage it. Rich Dad leaned in and said, "Most people think, I can't afford it. But the rich think, how can I afford it?" This small shift in mindset makes a huge difference. He explained that when you say, "I can't afford it," your brain shuts down. It stops searching for answers. But when you ask, "How can I afford it?" your brain starts working, thinking, and finding solutions you didn't notice before. To help Robert train his mind, Rich Dad gave him a simple exercise: whenever you want something but feel like you can't afford it, write down 3 ways you could make it happen. Maybe you can cut unnecessary expenses. Maybe you can start a small side hustle. Maybe you can learn a skill that pays more. This habit will force your brain to think like the rich. But Robert still had doubts. He looked at Rich Dad and asked, "What if I lose my money?" Rich Dad smiled gently and replied, "That is exactly what separates the rich from the poor. The poor fear losing money, so they avoid risks. They stay in their comfort zone. But the rich understand that failure is part of learning. If you make a mistake, you don't quit, you study the mistake, learn from it, and try again. Every failure teaches you something new." Finally, Rich Dad shared a simple, step-by-step wealth-building plan that anyone could follow, even with very little money. First, track your expenses. Write down every single thing you spend money on for 1 month. When you see it on paper, you will clearly notice where you're wasting money. Second, start small. Begin with small investments, maybe a few shares of stock, or a savings account that earns interest. Small steps build confidence. Third, learn every day. Read books, attend seminars, watch financial videos, or find mentors who understand money. Education is the strongest investment. Fourth, build assets first. Before buying luxuries, invest in things that will make you money, like rental properties, a side business, or digital assets. Fifth, reinvest your profits. When your investments make money, don't spend it immediately. Put that money back into new investments. This is how wealth grows faster and faster, like a snowball rolling down a hill. Robert listened with shining eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood what financial education truly meant. He realized that wealth was not luck, not talent, not magic, it was strategy, discipline, and a mindset that looked for opportunities instead of limitations. As Robert began following Rich Dad's advice, something remarkable started happening inside him. His relationship with money slowly changed. He no longer saw money as something that should be spent the moment it entered his hands. Instead, he began to see it as a tool that could create more money if used wisely. Every time he received even a small amount, he paused and asked himself, "How can this grow?" He started observing opportunities around him, chances to invest, chances to learn, and chances to build something bigger. His mindset gently shifted from scarcity, a mindset of fear, limitation, and worry, to abundance, a mindset full of possibilities and confidence. Rich Dad's lessons were no longer just ideas, they were shaping Robert's life step by step, decision by decision. One day, Rich Dad surprised Robert by saying, "To become wealthy, you must first learn how to control your emotions. Robert frowned. This confused him. Money and emotions, what was the connection? What do emotions have to do with money? He asked honestly. Rich Dad smiled, the way teachers smile when they know the student is about to understand something important. Everything, he replied. Most people let fear and greed control their financial decisions. These emotions are the very reason they stay poor. Rich Dad then explained how fear controls people. He said, fear is what keeps people trapped in jobs they hate. They fear not having enough money to pay bills. They fear losing security. So instead of taking risks, instead of learning new skills, instead of building something of their own, they settle for a paycheck. And that paycheck becomes a prison. He continued, think about someone who dreams of starting a small business. They imagine it for years. But they never start. Why? They're afraid of failing. Afraid of losing money. Afraid of being judged by others. So instead of trying, they stay in a job that keeps them alive but never lets them truly live. Rich Dad explained that the difference between the rich and the poor isn't the absence of fear. The rich feel fear too, he said. But they don't let fear stop them. They understand that fear is normal, but action is what creates progress. If you wait for fear to disappear, you will wait your entire life. Successful people feel the fear and move forward anyway. Then Rich Dad talked about another emotion that destroys people financially: greed. He said, greed traps people just as much as fear does. Greed makes people think that buying more things will make them happy. They believe that a new car will make them feel successful. They believe a large house will earn them respect. They chase satisfaction in objects, not in knowledge. But what they buy only increases their expenses, increases their stress, and increases their dependency on working harder. Rich Dad paused and said, true happiness doesn't come from owning things. It comes from freedom. Freedom to live how you want. Freedom to spend your time with the people you care about. Freedom to do the work that inspires you, not the work that drains you. And that freedom doesn't come from buying liabilities, it comes from building assets. Then he said something that stayed with Robert for years: if you want to control your emotions, you need knowledge. People are afraid of money because they don't understand it. They don't invest because they don't know how. They fear taxes because they don't know how taxes work. They avoid opportunities because they fear making mistakes. When you don't understand something, fear becomes your master. He leaned closer and added, but when you gain knowledge, real financial education, you replace fear with confidence. You replace confusion with clarity. You replace panic with power. Robert felt a shift inside him again. He realized that financial education wasn't just about numbers, charts, or investments. It was about understanding himself, his fears, his desires, and the emotions that controlled his decisions. Rich Dad was teaching him much more than money. He was teaching him how to think like a winner, how to live with courage, and how to build a life where freedom was possible. They don't know how to grow wealth, so they stay poor. That's why Rich Dad pushed Robert to learn 3 powerful skills. First, he told him to study investments, understanding stocks, real estate, and every honest method that helps money grow. Second, he told him to learn about taxes, how wealthy people legally reduce their taxes using smart strategies instead of working harder. Third, he told him to understand the market, when to buy, when to sell, and how to read the world of money without fear. Rich Dad always said, the more you know, the less afraid you'll be. Knowledge gives you power over fear. One of Rich Dad's strongest lessons was about changing how you think about money. He told Robert, "Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like an investor." Imagine you earn $1,000. A consumer will spend it on clothes, gadgets, food, or entertainment. But an investor will ask, "How can this $1,000 create more money?" Maybe by buying shares, starting a small online business, or taking a course to learn profitable skills. Consumers lose money. Investors grow money. This one difference changes an entire life. Rich Dad also trained Robert's eyes. He said, "Most people miss opportunities because they're too busy working or spending. The rich look for chances to grow their wealth." He gave Robert a unique exercise. When you walk down the street, don't just look at shops. Ask yourself, how could I own one? What does this business need? How could it grow? Think like an owner, not a customer. Robert practiced this daily. Suddenly, the world looked different. A small cafe for sale. An old house that could be renovated and rented. A website idea that could turn into income. Opportunities were everywhere once he learned how to see them. But success is never quiet. When Robert began applying these lessons, people around him doubted him. "You're too young to invest. That's too risky." His poor dad even told him to forget all this and focus on a safe job. Rich Dad told him gently, "People criticize what they don't understand. They speak from their own fears, not yours. If you listen to them, you will live their life." He encouraged Robert to stay focused and spend time with people who believed in growth and success. Rich Dad also taught him that he didn't need to start big. He shared the story of a young woman who had only $50. Instead of waiting for years to save a large amount, she bought small shares. Month by month, her money grew. Her confidence grew. Her dreams grew. Rich Dad explained, "Success is built step by step. Each small win gives you the courage to aim higher." Finally, he reminded Robert of the most important factor: daily habits. He said, "Your habits decide your future. If you invest a little every month, it grows. If you spend everything you earn, you stay stuck." His simplest rule was life-changing. Pay yourself first. Before paying bills, before expenses, before anything. Set aside a portion of your income for investing. Do this every month, and your future begins to transform. Here is a beautiful, polished, emotional, YouTube-ready version of your full-text smooth flow, no repetition, perfect for storytelling, and simplified for English learners while still powerful and inspiring. 2. Track your progress. Rich Dad told Robert to keep a journal of his financial journey. Write down your savings, investments, goals, and improvements. When you see your progress growing on paper, it motivates you to keep moving forward. But Rich Dad also warned Robert about one common mistake: impatience. He said most people quit because they don't see results fast enough. They want to become rich overnight, but wealth doesn't grow like that. He explained, "When you plant a seed, you don't get fruit the next day. You water it, you protect it, and you wait. Slowly, it becomes a strong tree. Wealth works the same way." Then he reminded Robert of a powerful truth. Money is only a tool. The real goal is freedom to live life on your terms, to follow your passions, and to help others. Once you reach that level of freedom, you will finally understand what it means to be truly rich. Robert left that lesson more inspired than ever. He made a decision: he would break free from the rat race, build assets, and create the life he always dreamed of. One day, after months of learning, Rich Dad said, "Now you're ready for the most important truth. Success is not about luck or talent. It's about mindset, hard work, and action." Robert leaned in, eager to hear more. Rich Dad continued, "Many people dream of becoming rich, but very few take action. They wait for the perfect time, for the perfect opportunity, for the perfect idea. But the truth is there is no perfect time. The best time to start is now." He gave Robert an example. Two friends make the same income. One says, "I'll start saving and investing when I earn more." The other starts with just $10 a week. 10 years later, the second friend has built a fortune. The first is still waiting for the right time. Rich Dad said, "Opportunities are everywhere, but only those who act on them see results. Don't wait until you're ready. Start with what you have." Then Rich Dad taught Robert another life-changing idea. Failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of success. He told the story of a businessman who failed 5 times. People laughed at him. They called him foolish. But he didn't quit. On his 6th attempt, he built a company that changed his life forever. Rich Dad smiled and asked, "Do you think he would have succeeded if he quit after his first failure?" Next, Rich Dad emphasized self-discipline. He said, "It's easy to spend money. But it takes discipline to save and invest. Always pay yourself first even if you have bills. Put something into savings or investments before you spend anything else." He explained that this habit forces you to become smarter, more creative, and more responsible with your money. Rich Dad also noticed that people often let fear and doubt stop them from trying. He told Robert, "Your thoughts create your reality. If you focus on fear, you'll find excuses. If you focus on dreams, you'll find solutions." As their lessons came to an end, Rich Dad shared one final, surprising idea. The richest people are the ones who give back. Robert was confused. "How does giving make you richer?" he asked. Rich Dad answered, "When you help others by sharing knowledge, mentoring, or donating, you create value in the world. That value returns to you in the form of fulfillment, respect, new connections, and new opportunities." He told Robert about a wealthy man who created a scholarship fund. Not only did he change hundreds of lives, but his generosity also opened doors to partnerships and businesses he never expected. Finally, Rich Dad said, "The moment you stop learning, you stop growing." Years later, Robert realized how deeply these lessons had shaped his life. He had built wealth not just in money, but in freedom, confidence, and the ability to help others. He shared this message with the world. No matter where you are in life, you can change your future. It doesn't matter if you have nothing right now. What matters is your mindset and your willingness to take action. Wealth is not only about money. It is about creating a life where you can follow your passions, support others, and live without regret. As you finish this story, remember, your journey to financial freedom begins today. Start small. Stay consistent. Learn from your failures. Dream big. And never, ever give up. Because the only limit to your success is the limit you place on yourself. The world is full of opportunities. They are waiting for you to take the first step. Your time is now. Make it count.